This is John Hall, the editor at All About Beer. Before we begin this week, an announcement. If you're headed to the Craft Brewers Conference in Philadelphia, I hope you'll come out to several events hosted by All About Beer. We're going to be doing live podcast recordings on April 20th and 21st from 4 to 6 p.m. each day at the Human Robot Brewery located on North 5th Street. Come out and listen to shows like Drink Beer, Think Beer, Brewer to Brewer, and the All About Beer podcast. Each will have very special guests and unparalleled insight into the brewing industry. Plus, all of your beers are on us. Make sure you're following All About Beer on Instagram to get additional details and info on our guests. This event is open to both the industry and the public, and I hope to see you there.
I'm Juleidy Peña of Notch Brewing, and this is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest is Maria Schertz of Stone Brewing, and she's here for a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. First, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer. And to support journalism in the beer space, check allaboutbeer.com/support. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but first, this message.
Today's episode is brought to you by StompStickers.com, trusted by thousands of breweries nationwide. With over 30 years of experience, they know beer branding inside and out. Labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and more. All backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. And if you're headed to the Craft Brewers Conference, stop by booth 1117 to check out Stomp's hand-on samples, like their Drink and Peel labels, or swing by the All About Beer live shows at Human Robot on North 5th to grab a brewery sample pack. Try your first run with StompStickers.com and get 15% off with code FIRSTRUN. That's FIRSTRUN. That's StompStickers.com. Hints of grain, dough, and golden bread greet your nose. Traces of sweet cereal appear alongside nutty and earthy aromas. Rahr To Thee Pils lets hop and yeast character take the spotlight, but it takes its supporting role seriously. Ideal for classic continental lagers and crispy craft lagers, Rahr To Thee is appropriate wherever you desire low color and low modification. Appearing in pFriem Pilsner, Rahr To Thee is produced in Alberta with Canadian-grown barley. Order from RahrBSG and learn more at RahrBSG.com. As an industry-leading keg management partner, Keg Logistics delivers premium stainless steel kegs with the flexibility you truly need. Whether you're kegging your first batch or scaling your distribution, choose the program that fits. Rent to own, flexible term leasing, or pay per fill. Get top quality kegs without massive upfront costs and terms that grow with you. Thousands of brewers, cider makers, and wineries trust Keg Logistics to keep production flowing. Head to keglogistics.com/allaboutbeer for your custom quote. Keg Logistics, your kegs, your choice.
Welcome. I'm very pleased to have Maria as my guest today. Maria is a Brazilian brewer with 7 years of experience in the beverage industry. Her primary focus, both professionally and personally, is the beer education and empowering minorities. She currently brews at Stone Sapporo in Richmond, Virginia. Welcome, Maria. So happy to have you here. How are you?
Hey, Juli, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here with you and miss talking to you. We haven't seen each other in so long.
I know. Maria and I go back from where she was in New York City. That's where you basically started your career in brewing. Was it brewing or beer at all something that you kind of like got into when you emigrated to the United States? When did you move here?
So I moved here in 2019, right before COVID, like 3 or 4 months prior. And I used to homebrew in Brazil. We had a collective, a feminist collective of 6 female brewers in São Paulo, where I'm from. And this was a hobby of mine. I used to be a journalist back then, and we would brew almost every weekend. We would go to festivals. It was a very good time. And then I noticed along the way, during festivals and parties and every event that we would attend, that we were kind of, I don't want to say ostracized, but there was a lot of weird interactions in these festivals. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where people come to you and start asking questions in a not so genuine way, but more like testing your knowledge,
Yeah.
or, just being kind of awkward or not, I don't know, being pleasant. And that's, also known as sexism. So at some point, I started getting frustrated with this situation. And I was already thinking about traveling and getting more experience around beer itself, education and whatnot. And then I came up with a project of writing a beer blog about women in beer. So I would still pursue journalism, but I would like to focus my journalism on beer writing, right? So I did that. I went to Europe for 3 months, July, October. And my focus was interviewing women in Europe that worked in beer and kind of research how they were treated there. How was, the Europe scene and whatnot. And then I came to the US to do kind of the same. I wanted to go to New York, Chicago, California, and kind of like observe how women in beer were doing in the US. But then I landed in New York City and I never left. I mean, I left after a while to other states
Eventually.
eventually, but
And
that's where I landed, yes.
we did met at Wild East.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really like that the stuff that they do. And you were also like dipping your toes into like beer education while being at Wild East.
Yes. So I left journalism as soon as I could get a beer job, basically, and that meant beer tending at the time. So I got a couple of bartending here and there, and at Wild East. So for those who don't know, Wild East is a New York City brewery. They're based in Brooklyn. I owe them so much, and I really really like them. They started right along with COVID, so that was kind of unfortunate, but they made it through. And because it was such a startup, we were building that together, which was a very amazing experience to be a part of, because we were kind of like, lifting off the ground together, almost literally. So they gave me a lot of opportunities. While my dream was to go to production, to go to the back of the house, but they couldn't afford. It was a startup brewery, we
Yeah.
was just starting. So at the same time, they were like, well, do you have any projects that you would like to, do while you're here? So I created this beer school thing because we realized as bartenders that there was a lot of confusion, or not a lot of experience about what we would do, which was mix firm beers and some lagers as well. Nowadays, I think while these focuses on lagers, but we also would focus on mix firm beer. And there was a lot of uh, people trying to like understand what that meant, like, what is a saison. I was like, why don't we educate people, and why don't we try and start, a project where people could come here and learn about the history of the beer and taste their beers at the same time. So that was really really interesting. We managed to do, I think, a few, like 5 or 6 encounters, and then I left for another state. But that was a really cool experience that I try and bring with me wherever I go. And that's where we met, right? I was bartending at Wild East at the time.
Yeah. Were
Yeah.
you when you had the beer school, was it for the Wild East employees that you were educating them on the technical processes of the beers you're already making? Or was it like an open school where beer fanatics could come and also learn
Hmm.
from these
It
beers
was,
you're making?
that's a good question. I would kind of show the employees the class that I would be giving, and they would participate. But the class was open, and we would charge, I think, around $20, and you would get 4 beers. So it wasn't like, it was just more of a, not, nothing, but it wasn't like crazy expensive. And it was open for anyone who would like to learn more. So my classes were focused on people that might not know anything or are just trying to learn more about it. So I didn't want to be as technical, or I knew, and I could also sense the class as I would go.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the first one had a lot of customers that were regulars, and the second one I already saw a lot of industry folk like brewers or beer tenders. So that was also cool to realize how I could go, along, playing along the music in a way. So they would
Yeah.
have Q&A, and we would just answer questions and do a really, really cool tasting where people from different backgrounds will let me know what they felt about the beer. And it could be as simple as I like it, or as sophisticated as like this reminds me of jasmine and whatnot. And so it was very I don't know, it was for a lot of publics. It was really cool.
I feel like going back to that, just like tasting beers and like we coming from like different backgrounds that usually have over other different like food memories and like flavors and
Hmm.
aromas. So when you're trying to um explain where you're tasting or smelling, I feel like nothing is a wrong answer. It's like it just depends on what your
Taste.
core memory is when it comes to like flavors and aromas. So it's always like interesting when you're talking to people, sharing beers, doing this kind of like presentations, just to hear what people come up with, because sometimes it's like a wild idea and then you're like, that actually makes a lot of sense. So it's always fun to see people that don't even are like into beer come up with like the wildest descriptors for beers and flavors. So that's like, I feel like I really like that because it's like super cool when you're talking to people. But
Yeah.
um your time in New York, and then you moved to New Orleans, where you were the head brewer at Team Brew Beer. Can you tell
Hmm.
me a little bit how that move and that process kind of went?
So I moved to Louisiana in April 2021 because my partner got a job in distilling, and he moved before me, and then I moved in April, and I started at Tin Roof as a cellar tech, and then I went progressively to assistant brewer and then head brewer. And that was a really, really interesting experience because people in Louisiana, their drinking habits are completely different than New York City. And because it's such a warm state, they would prefer drinking light lagers, or they loved amber ales as well because they had this relationship with Abita and their amber. And it was just so interesting to see what people would gravitate towards. And it was a very valuable experience as a head brewer to have contact with the consumer and listen to them and learn what they preferred. They also, have, as any other state or region in the US, their local fruits. So I would brew with that as well in order to just make something homey or familiar. And I think that was very valuable and a different experience from New York, where I would just be on the hustle side of things trying to make ends meet. And Louisiana gave me the opportunity to breathe a little bit and learn what people actually like drinking and why they are, there at the brewery drinking what they're drinking. So that was really cool.
Did you feel that you develop a style as a brewer while there? Because it seems like you were kind of like towards just making beer that people want to drink, which I wish
Mhm.
we are in the business of selling beer. Sometimes we don't get to brew everything that we want to drink. But do you feel that you found like a middle ground, or what was like your strategy to kind of like brew beers that people want to drink, but also like feel that you're feeling that need that we have as brewers to be kind of creative. You have
I
like
love,
freedom to play with that.
yeah, I love this question because um, although, you have customers and ownership asking you like, hey, you need to brew this and that because our distributors need X, Y, and Z. Um, I I had a lot of freedom to play with the recipes that were there since, forever. It was a 13-year-old brewery. And I found out um, along the way that I really loved to do whatever style I was doing, let's say a hazy IPA or an American lager with old world ingredients. So this was such a good experience for me because I could test the ingredients that I wanted. And I found out through sensory analysis, through education, and through sharing things with people from the industry, what were the ingredients that I liked the most working with. So I changed, I'm gonna give an example. There was like their core lager was brewed with motueka, like they would add motueka hops to, the last 5 minutes of boil. And I didn't think that would play a lot into it. I didn't like how the outcome. So I changed those hops to old world hops. So I would brew with Saaz, and that gave me different results and a sensory that I at least appreciated more. And I think the consumer as well. I saw the result, on sales and the tap room. And I kind of created this. I found out throughout the way that this was kind of my signature. I don't think I'm the only one that does it, obviously, but it was really interesting to see or to experiment how to brew new world beer with old world ingredients. That was really fun.
Did you, because you is a 13-year-old brewery that has brands that are probably established, and you're taking those brands and like changing their recipe. Was there, sounds like the feedback from everyone was positive, but you know how people are like, some customers are like, oh, I only drink this beer. Did you get any like pushback or people saying that you went over there and like ruined the beer?
um, you know what? We would get more than that. I did have a couple of people complaining about one specific beer, and then I made some tweaks, and I got a positive feedback after that. So that was a really cool experience. I was like, oh shit, did I mess up? And then, trying to understand what the customer base wanted was also fun. But I think what they would complain the most, because it's a 13-year-old brewery, they would complain about, that beer that I had 8.5 years ago. Why don't you make that anymore? And I was like, my God, I wasn't even in the US 8.5 years ago. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Or like I would tell the truth. Like, you were probably the only person drinking that beer. So that's why which is, I mean, the consumer wants what the consumer wants, but it needs to make sense to the business model, right? So
Yeah.
we did play a little bit with those brands in our anniversary one time, and we brought a lot of older brands, and it was so funny because I changed the recipe completely, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much! I really love this beer. Thank you for bringing it back." And I was like, "Huh." So you love the idea of the beer, right?
Yeah.
And not that I wanted to, like mess up with people's taste or just I didn't want to catch them in a lie by no means, but it's funny how people sometimes have just the memory of a thing and they don't really realize or don't remember the taste of it, right?
Sometimes have this idea of like what a beer is, or
Mm-hmm.
what you remember, and then you try it. And it happened to me recently. I was really into the Newcastle Brown Ale, and haven't had it
Yes.
for
I know
years.
exactly what you're talking
I
about.
found one. I was down in North Carolina and they have it in this bar and I tried and I was like, wow, this is like not even close to what I remember in my mind. So I feel like sometimes we just like have that idea of like a thing that we really liked and
Hmm.
then you're not even close to what it actually is. But having, I think that is super cool that you had the ability to kind of like steers these beers to have more of your personality when you were there. That being said, what are things that sort of like inspire you when you're thinking about creating a beer? What is your thought process? What research are you doing? Are you trying different beers from that same style? Like, what is your thought when you, let's say, go into creating a new beer? Like, how do you go about it?
Hmm. So I haven't done a self, my own recipe in a while since I moved to Stone because there I'm a shift brewer and my job is different. But I do still work with a lot of brewing, not brewing beer per se, but I like to make amari and other things on my free time. And I think this this question doesn't have one answer, but I do think that I like to research while I cook, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I'm cooking something that smells good, or when I'm like adding different ingredients to it, I would be like, oh, this goes with that. So let's say I'm making mushroom and leek pie. I was making the other day, and I was like, you know what? I think this would be good with the citrus. And then I add lime to it, and then I this is what will kind of inspire me to do, let's say, an amari with bitters and citrus at the same time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, every amari has that, but it's more the combination of cooking with brewing or with just other projects will allow me to go into, I think, the flavor world.
Yeah.
And traveling also, it's a big one. I mean, it's insane how you learn different references when traveling. So I just came back from Brazil, my home country, and it's amazing to go to like a street fair and like see all the fruit that they have and just like try things that you wouldn't try. And I was with my husband and I was just showing him, oh, this is, cane juice, like freshly made. So I feel like cooking and traveling were the things that inspired me into creating a new recipe, or to make something at my home that I wouldn't make otherwise. Um, but yeah, and I remember also I would do a lot of research with ingredients overall. Like sensory analysis is also something that I'm very into. So sharing, different beers and also asking different people, not only have your own sensorial experience, but like asking your coworkers, what does this taste to you? Or like, what does this smell to you? And do you think this would go with that kind of thing? Is also, I think, beneficial for brewers in general.
I'm gonna tap into that a little more, but first we're gonna take a short break for this message, and then we're gonna come back right back with Maria in this conversation.
As an industry-leading keg management partner, Keg Logistics delivers premium stainless steel kegs with the flexibility you truly need. Whether you're kegging your first batch or scaling your distribution, choose the program that fits. Rent to own, flexible term leasing, or pay per fill. Get top quality kegs without massive upfront costs and terms that grow with you. Thousands of brewers, cider makers, and wineries trust Keg Logistics to keep production flowing. Head to keglogistics.com/allaboutbeer for your custom quote. Keg Logistics, your kegs, your choice. Hints of grain, dough, and golden bread greet your nose. Traces of sweet cereal appear alongside nutty and earthy aromas. Rahr To Thee, Pils, lets hop and yeast character take the spotlight, but it takes its supporting role seriously. Ideal for classic continental lagers and crispy craft lagers, Rahr To Thee is appropriate wherever you desire low color and low modification. Appearing in pFriem Pilsner, Rahr To Thee is produced in Alberta with Canadian grown barley. Order from RahrBSG and learn more at RahrBSG.com. Headed to the Craft Brewers Conference? Stop by Stomp Stickers at booth 1117 to check out hands-on samples like their drink and peel labels, or grab your brewery sample pack at the All About Beer live podcast shows at Human Robot. Low minimums, fast turnaround, 100% satisfaction guarantee. StompStickers.com.
Okay, welcome back. So, talking that you just been recently in Brazil, now that you have traveled the world, kind of have different positions in the industry in different states in the United States, how would you compare the Brazilian like beer scene and like what you're experiencing right now? And it can be like current time.
Nice. I love this question. So Brazil has this funny aspect where we kind of emulate everything the US does. I don't know if your experience from DR is similar,
Yeah.
but the US is such, you know what I'm talking about. The US is such an imperialistic country that it's kind of hard to run away from its influence. And the difference is, I think there's a lot of because the country's so hot as well, there's a lot of macro beer influence that obviously were the first ones to land, over there and start like AB Bev and whatnot, obviously because of money and because of infrastructure that that they have. So we are known for our macro light lagers, but I think from the craft beer scene perspective, it is really, really cool to see what people are making. There's obviously the haze craze influence because of the US, but I've been seeing since I started in beer, I don't know, in 2018 in Brazil, I've seen a lot of play with Brazilian ingredients that which is like Brazilian fruit for that matter, that were really interesting. I really loved being like so, and that's I think how we came to have the only Brazilian style in the BJCP guide, right? It's the Catarina sour, which is
Oh
a
yes.
a sour beer brewed with Brazilian fruit. And I had the opportunity to have a few of those, you know, um, and it's just amazing. Like beer with cupuaçu, with just fruits from the northeast or the north of the country that are very different from the fruits from the southeast. So that is really cool to see. And I think also there's other people trying to work with um, other native ingredients, native yeast for that matter, that I also think it's really, really interesting from our recipe development perspective. So I think that's the main difference there. We have a lot of light lagers, a lot of Brahma,
Yeah.
and
They tried
that's
they tried
the
Brahma
question.
they tried to make it in the DR, it did not work.
Interesting. I wonder why.
That was like in the early 2000s. I remember I was in college and they for the price of like one Presidente, like the liter one, you could
Hmm.
get three Bohemians. I mean, three Brahmas.
Brahma.
And
Mm.
when you're like in college and you're broke, we were like,
Yeah.
oh, I'd rather have three beers than one. But eventually, you just like pull it out of the market because it didn't work out. I feel like for countries who are like very, it's like this is our brand and this is what we drink. You cannot make me change my mind.
Yeah. It
I
is a
feel like it's
cultural
like,
thing.
yeah, part of being like very like in your roots is like, yes,
Hmm.
this is like part of me being a Dominican or a Brazilian. Do you feel like your heritage kind of seeps into the way you make beer, or the way that you go about yourself at work? How like your experience kind of like translate into your day-to-day life in like the brew deck or in the brewery overall, which front of house and whatever?
Hmm. Well, this is a very multi-layered answer, I guess. But I think from the ingredient perspective, my heritage helped me with, I want to say, the repertoire of, what goes good with what, let's say. So as someone, I also worked, at a hazy brewery, other half, and it was interesting to see how they would play with dry hopping and all those tropical notes. And it's funny for me how what Americans call tropical. Obviously, it is tropical, but it's a different reference for me. Like they would say, oh, mango or this and that, and for me, tropical is guava, or like it's
Yeah.
it's not as different as you would think, on the day to day. But it helped me, I think, my repertoire and my Brazilian background to kind of experience like, okay, I don't think this goes with that, kind of thing. So I think it helped a lot on recipe development. And also, I want to say that my my experience with sugar is very different from the American experience. So I would always try and find more balance because I don't have the same sugar like tolerance. Maybe I don't know if that's even a concept, but things for me here are very sugary, very, very sugary. And although I know that people like that, I would try and seek to do something more balanced. And I think people prefer balanced, but because it's not something that it's, their day to day, it might sometimes, not to be, patronizing, but sometimes when you just introduce something more balanced, people would be, oh, okay, this is interesting. Like this is
Yeah.
different. So I think that's where it plays with my recipe
I feel
development.
like people also, in the chase of always drinking something different, don't really pay attention to like balance and drinkability, because like if the beer is not balanced or the drinkability is not there, you're not gonna want to drink more than one.
Yeah.
And I feel like we come from places where you're just sitting drinking a single beer, that is the beer that is there. So we particularly are not chasing what is new. You want something that is good. Because I always see and hear people just like asking like what is new. It's like having a new beer every week is very difficult for us
Yes.
brewery.
Yes. And not
um,
sustainable.
so I feel like the balance and drinkability comes is not so much as a thing because of just like chasing that new for a group of craft drinkers.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was definitely a hard task back when I was a head brewer. We would have, seasonal beers and we would plan to brew accordingly, but the customer base would always be chasing for the novelty, and it's hard to educate on this level like, hey, business model wise, this is not sustainable. So like you might say you want one, but if you have one and then you leave, like I'm still gonna have the six still here behind the bar,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point.
So I'm gonna shift a little bit. Now you're in Richmond, working at a bigger brewery, Stone, Sapporo Stone. Um, Now that you're seeing kind of like all this, or most of the size of like brewing, what would you say is like, what did you miss from being a smaller craft brewer that is probably his hands on everything, than now being at a larger scale production where probably a lot of the processes might be automated. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how big
Mm-hmm.
it is, but also, consistency is something that we always try to achieve when we're brewing. So what are your thoughts on like what you miss about before, what you like about being a larger scale brewer? What do you miss? What you don't miss? Like
Mm-hmm.
how the transition has been for you from now brewing in at two very different scales, like as a brewer.
I I love this question because it's definitely night and day, and they're both they're both amazing. I I do miss the recipe development aspect of it. Obviously, as you know, someone that worked as a head brewer is really cool to create your own recipes, and just like a chef, you can do or create something that people will taste the result, and you can actually have feedback almost instantly, right? Or at least 3 weeks, a month, 6 months later, depending on the beer that you're making. Um, but I've never worked with so much infrastructure, and this is a really like game changer. It's really amazing to work at a place that you have a maintenance team, that you have, that you
Yeah,
have, the really cool machinery that you're like, holy, this is like NASA for beer. I
yeah,
mean, each I don't know, each day, like if you have, and also you do have, at least at Sapporo Stone, we have a continuous improvement team that it's always trying to make processes better. So this is also something that I am really into it. Like, how can I make this more efficient, or, have more yields, and Sapporo also have a sensory like scientist there. So we get to participate into, daily sensory analysis. And it's something that, as someone that really loves um, just studying beer as a whole, I thought this was also something that I never experienced before that really changed, I think, the way I view beer. But the daily operations is super different. You have we work 24/7 basically. So it's really, really good not to have, let's say, 12-hour shifts, because you always have a handoff. So I think the work-life balance is also way better at a bigger brewery, as opposed to, although you are the one kind of hands-on on a smaller scale brewery, you also have to stay if you have a stuck mash, right? You also have
yeah,
to stay if, I don't know, your glycol system breaks. You also, have to stay it, you name it. Um, which is, it can be hard. It leads to burnout for sure. I've experienced that, and a lot of my colleagues in the industry have. So I think there's pros and cons. I do miss a lot of aspects of microbrewing, but I think as a professional brewer, I I want to say I prefer working at a big scale brewery, at least for the time being. I still have so much to learn. It's crazy how, you think you achieve this place in your career because you become a head brewer, and obviously you're learning something every day, right? We all do. But then you go to a scale, like a major, scale brewery, and you're like, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. So that's also a very cool aspect of changing from micro to, larger scale, that, and I love learning. So I keep like chasing my own tail sometimes, like, and it's overwhelming, but it's certainly fulfilling. I'll tell you that.
yeah. And also, like, other half is a big craft brewery, right? So it's like brewing on a production scale while also being very physical with your processes. It's like that. I feel like you went through like all the aspects of like the different size of the breweries that you could be at.
For sure.
And
I've
do
been
you
around.
feel that because like at the end of the day, you're also like still very interested in the journalism, the like minorities, empowering people, just learning. Are you still working on that? How is that fitting currently in your career?
I have lost a little bit of base with that because of all the moving. And I'm just now getting to know my PBS chapter. PBS is Pink Boot Society, for those who don't know. So I'm just now getting to uh, know my chapter, and I feel like there is a lot of room to work education in here. I think the chapter leads are amazing, and I think there's still I if if I present a project, I think they will absolutely say yes, but I still need to work a little bit more on it. Back in the day when I was a member of the New Orleans chapter, I would do monthly education meetings on either beer styles or beer, history events. We did a special one for Oktoberfest, for instance, but that's something that I need to regroup here in Richmond that I haven't yet. As a more future plan, I do have this dream of creating my own business where I would have classes as well. God knows when I will be able to do that. But it is a project of mine, and not just beer, but fermentation in general. And I would like to also open this kind of school for the elderly and children. Let's say, how to bake bread or miso, and not necessarily
Like
focus on
fermentation,
alcohol.
not
Yes.
just specifically alcohol. That
Yeah,
sounds
because
cool.
I know that there's a lot of this memery about kids in breweries, which I particularly don't, I don't care if they're like, I don't have strong opinions about it. I think moms need a place to go with their kids, but it would be really nice, I feel like, if we provided something for those kids other than board games, or if they could go and just make bread one day, spend 3 hours there learning. I think that would be way more productive, and their moms and their dads would have some time to rest and have their beer and have a conversation instead of chasing them around. I don't know, it's just something that. And I do think that the elderly are also ostracized a lot,
Yeah.
especially women. When I see, people like my mom, which she's great and great health, thank God, but I don't see a lot of experiences that she could be taken part of, or if obviously she can go to a bar and she goes to bars, but I don't see a lot of um, communal. I don't see the community like letting these people in. It's almost like kids and the elderly were a bit like, oh, we're not very interesting
Yeah.
to us because you don't consume as much. So I was just like thinking of something that is very community driven and could bring those people back into, either the bar or society in general.
So you're saying you do not want to open your own brewery?
I would, I think, start with a brew pub and have my little fermentation school in the back. I think
Yeah.
that would be a dream business plan. But, maybe I'll have to win the lotto first and then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. How did you, since we're gonna begin to wrap up the conversation, I kind of like, you've been to like very different places. How are you feeling like community wise and like beer community and like brewers in the Richmond area? Have you
Mhm.
made relationships? I know you're in pin boots. Like, how is the vibe out
How's
there?
the vibe?
Yeah.
Richmond is really interesting because it is very progressive, which it's, as an immigrant and a woman, I that's really dear to my heart. So I feel really safe here and it's a very special place. It's a awesome city. The beer scene is not huge, which also helps because it's easier to get to know people. But Richmond is funny, although Virginians like to think that they're Southern, the way people behave is way more like the East Coast. And I think you know what I'm talking about as a Latina in Massachusetts, right? Where people are a little more standoffish, a little colder, which is not, it's not a problem, but it's a little harder to engage. I think the Pink Boots chapter here is really awesome and it's a great opportunity to meet people. I'm just getting to know some of the members better, and this has been really, really special. We actually are gonna have a collab soon. No, not a collab. I'm so sorry. Yeah, like a
Like the
March,
brewer where
like
all the brewers get together.
all the brewers get. Yeah, it's like it's more of a women's, celebration from March, collaboration, which is really cool. Um, but I've been noticing that it's a little bit of like to each their like a little people are more in their own bubble kind of thing. But there is a craft beer tradition, I would say. Like we have breweries like, Stone, obviously, the Vale, Ardent, Triple Crossing. Like there's so many good breweries and there are festivals, there are events. You see the breweries are popping every weekend, which is amazing. Um, but I do think that I still need to get to know them a little better, if that makes sense.
How did you feel? From my perspective, your trajectory has been very like interesting. Um,
Thanks.
and you've been able to do like many different positions in many different places. So you have gotten firsthand how, depending on where you are, is like the beer scene is different, like the what people like to drink is different, like the
Hmm.
brewing overall is different. Um, so far, what would you say is like has been like your favorite, or if you would do like a mashup of like some of them in your ideal world, um
Okay.
or what
It's
is, and then second part, what is something that you're currently working on career wise or on your brewing, say I want to learn how to do X thing,
hmm
what is like the thing that you're currently working on right now? Could be like a small thing.
okay. Um, as far as best places to drink beer go, I think New York City is very special regarding that. But because New York City is special in every sense, basically, it's huge, it's diverse. You have people from all over the world, so you will find anything every time, whenever you want. That was a very fulfilling experience to me. Obviously, Brussels, I had the opportunity to be there a couple of times, and it's just Beer Disney, man, that is such a fun, a fun place to be and to experience new things. I mean, new beers, and that was such a flavor explosion for me. That's when I was like, oh my God, beer is so cool. Um, and I think also not beer related properly, but when I went to Oaxaca a few years ago and I did a whole mezcal trip and I went to Matatlan and I saw palenques where they would make mezcal, that changed my life. I get almost like teary eyes because it was such an experience to see, like native people working with the same thing for so many years and how it's sacred and how it's part of their history, right? And this is what I love about fermentation and the beverage industry in general. And I think sometimes we tend to forget that because the day to day gets to us. But this
Yeah.
is culture. Fermentation is culture. And this is why I chose to be a part of it because you can express your culture via fermentation, right?
And
So
keep
I
traditions alive too.
exactly and give people's voices or you can put some people
Yeah.
on the spot that wouldn't otherwise for sure. But to answer your second question about where do I want to, what's something that I've been working on, I've been really focused on this aspect of continuous improvement aspect of my job because it's such a big company. We have goals and targets and things that they would like for us to achieve within the year. And being a part of this group, which is open for every brewer, but it's something that I've been very focused on, has been really interesting because I did not know that I could kind of join both of my worlds when I say that, I mean, like study data or study, a lot of processes that can be improved and give like another look onto targets and analysis that I would have not had I not, be working in such a big place. So that's, I think, something that I would like to kind of pursue in my career at this company at Stone Sapporo, where um, how can I make processes better and help, achieve better extract yields or you name it,
Yeah.
but it's
Efficiency.
efficiency, yeah, while you're consistent, right? Which is, as you said, the the hardest challenge of our industry.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question
No, this is
is
so
two
fun.
questions.
Okay.
So the last question is two questions and is what is a beer fad that you think that should go away and something that you would like to see more in the industry?
A beer fact that should go away.
Yeah, like a fad, like this
Oh,
is
can I be basic and say the fact that IPAs were created by the English going to India and blah blah blah.
yes,
Okay. That's an annoying one. I'm sorry. That's the first one I can think of. I'm sure I can think of several
didn't came
others.
from the Indias. What?
This is just such an annoying. Oh my God. That was the meme. That's still a meme. It has to be, right? When you're a bartender and you're
Yeah,
serving a first date and you're seeing that interaction, like, oh my God.
but like a
No, just
beer, like
stop.
what is a? We have like so many beer trends. Which one you think is like not your favorite?
Juli, you're gonna get me canceled. Did I tell you I got canceled in New Zealand because of that one time? A journalist,
I did not know that.
a beer journalist. Oh my God, sweetheart, I forget his name. Asked me for Vine Pair this very same question. What is your least favorite style of beer? I think it was Ash Gross. Um, and I said New Zealand Pilsners because I don't think that New Zealand hops, at least the New Zealand Pilsners I had in the US, I've never been to New Zealand, all right? But the New Zealand Pilsners I've had in the US were super unbalanced because I think those tropical notes that we were just talking about
Yeah.
don't go well with Pilsners. I don't think they're balanced. I don't think it's a great combo. And then a beer journalist, I think from New Zealand, posted on his newsletter saying that Maria Shirts at the moment, at the time, head brewer from Tin Roof, hates New Zealand Pilsners and hates our country. And I was like, oh my God, I swear to God, that's not what I
So
said.
you're banned in New Zealand? Probably.
I'm canceled in New Zealand. I cannot go. No, I'm joking. But yeah, that's kind of like I don't even know if it's a trend anymore. I think that died. I don't know. I haven't seen New Zealand Pilsners in a while.
And what do you want to see more?
What do I want to see more?
People brewing.
Oh, more people brewing. As you know, a lot of brewers. I'm a sucker for lagers. I really, really like traditional, old world lagers, alt beer. We had this debate.
Beer of the alt beer.
We spoke about it a few years ago, me and you. I do love old world lagers. And I think there are way more around than they used to be.
Yeah.
At least in Richmond, it was a pleasant surprise to see how they have lager breweries here that it's all they brew and it's amazing. Um,
And it's
but I
sustainable now. You can actually pay your employees and not go broke. I
Yeah,
feel it's like with beer, it's always like going back around
yes,
the trends. You
I
just have to
agree.
endure all the years that what you do is
The
not
in
a
betweens,
trend.
yeah,
Yeah,
the in between.
it's like it happens to Notch where people are just like, wow, how is it that you have a mostly lager
Hmm.
tap and you're successful? And it's like it didn't happen overnight.
Of course.
Um, it was a lot of years of just
And
fighting
educating
against
your consumer, right?
pride.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're
It's
going
it's
back around.
it's amazing to see, yeah, how a lot of lager breweries came from, you know, a not so famous point, and that, like, now, like, you guys are here in Richmond. I see Notch in several bottle shops and whatnot. It's amazing. And not
Nice.
only, but like Oxbow, or like all these like interesting lager brew houses is like amazing. And I do think that it is cyclical. I agree with you. I just I hope we stay on the lager trend for a longer while before we go back to the hazy IPA trend.
Well, it never went away in New
That is
England.
true.
But yeah, all four drinkable, balanced beers that you can drink more than one.
Yes.
Uh,
Earthy.
Maria, thank you so much for being my guest today. This was a great
Thank you, Uli.
conversation. Honestly, in awe of everything that you've done and you continue to do. So, love you. You're
Oh, love
one
you too. You're gonna
and
make me
to
cry.
our listeners, Maria will be back on the next episode of this show as a host, having a conversation with a brewer of her choosing. That will be on next week, so make sure to tune in for that. A reminder, visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer. To support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. I'm Juleidy Peña of Notch Brewing. Thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast.
Hints of grain, dough, and golden bread greet your nose. Traces of sweet cereal appear alongside nutty and earthy aromas. Rahr To Thee, Pils, lets hop and yeast character take the spotlight, but it takes its supporting role seriously. Ideal for classic continental lagers and crispy craft lagers, Rahr To Thee is appropriate wherever you desire low color and low modification. Appearing in pFriem Pilsner, Rahr To Thee is produced in Alberta with Canadian-grown barley. Order from RahrBSG and learn more at RahrBSG.com. Thinking about switching printers but just not sure? See Stump Stickers products for yourself at the Craft Brewers Conference, booth 1117. StumpStickers.com keeps it simple. Low minimums for a quick test, fast turnaround, and 100% satisfaction guarantee on every order. And trusted by thousands of brewers for over 30 years. So stop by booth 1117, check out hands-on samples like their drink and peel labels, and swing by the All About Beer podcasts at Human Robot to grab a brewery sample pack. Or head to stompstickers.com and use code FIRSTRUN for 15% off of your first order. As an industry-leading keg management partner, Keg Logistics delivers premium stainless steel kegs with the flexibility you truly need. Whether you're kegging your first batch or scaling your distribution, choose the program that fits. Rent to own, flexible term leasing, or pay per fill. Get top quality kegs without massive upfront costs and terms that grow with you. Thousands of brewers, cider makers, and wineries trust Keg Logistics to keep production flowing. Head to keglogistics.com/allaboutbeer for your custom quote. Keg Logistics, your kegs, your choice.